I was thinking from, again, stuff that we didn't touch on yesterday. I did want to talk about our lovely bird, Hoodweek. And then I was also thinking that and some of the stuff kind of all goes together, but the movies in reverse, or the movie in reverse, the whole Free Will Y issue, and Charles Madorian books, I thought those would be at least 4 areas for us to kind of take a look at. In no particular order, although I did want to kind of start with Pudaweed a little bit. But I don't want to limit us to just those things. Was there any other thoughts, ideas, things that kind of came to mind yesterday at some random point in the day, like, ooh, we didn't talk about that. I was wondering if you had any clarification so that I can just simply say no. And then we can move on. Not that I would necessarily say.
I mean, no. does it the Pudaweed have any significance yet?
I went, well, you mean like is it clear, like this is the clear meaning for it? No, I would say no less than it's probably going to have at the end of the book. There, at no point do I feel that there is a definitive, this is it. Now you know. And I mean, I'm sure when it gets mentioned, because it at the end of chapter 1, after the whole lot illusion, and this is how my book's a failure. It starts like this. Listen, Billy Booker has become unstuck in time. It ends like this. And then a good number of you, if not all of you, turn to page 215. And oh, yeah, it does end that way. Besides gibberish, any reactions to it?
Billy Birch don't make that noise.
As opposed to a tweet, tweet, tweet?
Yeah.
I mean, if you combine tea and wheat, you kind of get a little bit of a tweet. I remember, Josh, in French class in high school, I swear we spent 3 class periods talking about how dogs bark differently in France than they do in the United States.
Oh my god. Cows go like
I don't remember the cow.
They say like the sound noise.
I remember the dogs go woof woof instead of woof. It was woof woof. So
yeah, the way they
maybe birds in Dresden go Pudaweet. I've never been there. I can't say, but it makes me think of that. Hyphens, words, anything you notice? Question mark.
I knew
What's the impact of it being a question? Or I should say, what's the potential impact of it being a question, since we still never know exactly what it means. But how does the question mark affect or maybe even like change anything about it?
The birds want to know what's going on. They don't even know what's going on.
Okay, so, and again, I know this seems like kind of silly stuff to be going, but birds questioning. I've seen birds.
You think you have.
I did. Someone saw a yellow cardinal in our neighborhood. Supposedly that's like super rare. So I didn't see that one. Saw a red cardinal. I didn't see a yellow cardinal. Birds questioning other birds. Birds questioning people.
Like, what did you guys do this time? Oh, gee, well, that's what they're saying.
That's another topic that we'll get into. So, Josh, you're kind of getting like into the "why did you do this" kind of question.
Sorry, I checked on waterway.
Like you're kind of getting into the "why did you do this to each other" kind of question. Okay. So, why did you kill each other?
Why'd you ruin our home?
What's the point of war? Why is this question, not these, which these are hypothetical questions. I think they're realistic hypothetical questions, or at least, realistic in the sense of where Vonnegut could be going with it. What makes this question impossible to answer? Who do we? Okay, so you cannot answer a question if you don't know what the question is. Essentially, this kind of seems to boil down maybe to a whole why thing, which we get into the back of the book here a little bit. Is there any impact with the fact that it's birds asking the question?
I mean, I think it could be in
Innocent of wrongdoing, or just innocent we're not doing like malevolence towards one another? Okay.
Like they can't move the malevolence of people because they are complicated, because they're robots.
So the capacity of evil, they don't possess the way that we do. So they take a look at it and go, why would you do this? They can't fathom the idea of what's the point of war? Why did you destroy the home? Why did you kill each other? Does that make them simpler than us? Does that make complex? Emma?
Simpler because they can't look back in time.
Can we look back in time?
You can't remember.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
Really?
it's like more instinct.
rational thought.
Yeah.
All right. Is it?
Some sort of-
I'm sorry.
Birds have to have some type of memory. I mean, yeah, they gotta know where their like nest is.
Yeah, like where, and I mean, I remember, I forget class teacher, but I remember at one point some explaining that, animals do not have complex thoughts. They cannot think. But at the same time, I remember thinking, okay, I've definitely seen cats and dogs have dreams, which is like a complex thought process. So, kind of wonder. I think it is kind of like a Tralfamadorian human type thing where you don't quite understand how you're never going to be able to get a total, kind of concrete thought process to it. Kind of like how Heath in physics, it's just never quite going to work.
I wasn't there today. I was at Park I think because I don't know. Call me now.
He calls the gate. Oh, I thought it was the gate.
I don't know, Heath. I feel like you're just ditching me.
Because I can't. My class.
Hey, what's the answer to the question? Who do we? Give us an answer.
That's a question.
Well, there's a question mark.
Sure.
Sure.
That's the answer.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. 100%.
I'm kind of glad you said that.
Why?
Sure.
What does sure sound a lot like?
So it goes.
Yeah.
So smart.
Now,
It's like last year I came in.
so here's two different things where we had so it goes, which we said is okay. This is more of a Tralfamadorian viewpoint. For me, it's moving. For you, it's not. Tralfamadorians present so it goes. Birds present Pruduit. So you're getting two different kind of observations about what humans are doing when it comes to war, when it comes to killing one another, when it comes to massacres. The Tralfamadorian viewpoint, so it goes, I think we kind of tend to like a little bit more because we understand it. But it's coming back, hopefully. But the bird one, I think, it is not currently. Tralfamadorians?
Mm-hmm.
No, they're 2-foot plungers. There we go.
But are they?
There we go. So it goes, Tralfamadorian viewpoint, Pruduit bird viewpoint, both of them kind of taking a look at what humans do, but I don't know if when it comes to humans, do we truly have a decision, do we truly feel like we have anything that can decide if war is going to be appropriate or not? Do we have free will? Not according to Tralfamadorians. I'm not worried about what Tralfamadorians think. I'm not worried about what Vonnegut thinks. Do you think we have free will? Do we have the ability to choose?
Yes. If I wanted to punch Megan right now, I definitely could.
Mhm.
I'm not saying I
Well,
would.
prove it.
Hey, no, I'm not gonna punch Megan. That's just an example. I don't lie. I don't punch
But
Megan.
you can like want to punch Megan, but you like hold yourself back from doing it because
Zach, it
Why
looked
would
like
you
you
do
had a.
I was gonna say doesn't matter.
What?
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like I don't know, but I'm not saying anything.
How come?
Well, it means the whole point of the book is you can't change anything that's happening. He's going through time to all these different things, and no matter what that is said, what happens.
I would say for doesn't matter, the answer would be no if you're Tralfamadorian. I would say the answer would be no if you are Billy Pilgrim. Keep in mind, what's a pilgrim do? Travels, journeys, kind of like what Billy does. I think, and certainly not only those two things. I think you could be, any of us in here go, does it matter? No, I don't really think it does. I do think that it matters to Vonnegut, where it's not a question of can we change things, but I think for him it ends up kind of being a question of do we actually want to change things. The nice thing about So It Goes is
Yeah.
that's the way it goes. It's not my fault. It's not my problem. You know what? What was meant to be, meant to be. It's going to happen. Either I'm going to ace this physics test or I'm going to fail it. But guess what? There's nothing I can do about it because what's going to happen is going to happen. And in a lot of ways, I think that can be a good and healthy viewpoint to have. If you're going into your AP exam, hey, at this point, it is what it is. There's not a whole lot I can do about it. I don't think that's a good thing maybe to think about at the beginning of your junior year. You know what? What happens this year, it's going to happen no matter what. Let's just play Switch and drink Mountain Dew. It'll be a good time. And Jesse comes over and, there is life. I'm not going to go to work today, and it'll still be okay. Hey, what's going to happen is going to happen. I get the sense that Vonnegut thinks that people in general, we take that approach too often. And so, when it comes to the massacres that he's going, I don't want my sons to participate in, I don't want them to be happy when enemies are massacred, I don't want them to be part of any kind of corporation that's going to produce machinery for massacres. I want them to care about other people, I want them to have thoughts, I want them to have feelings, I want them to not just simply become complacent all the time. And one of the things that pops up in his office is the Serenity Prayer, which is something that it also kind of becomes a little bit of a dilemma where, grant me the wisdom to understand what I can change and what I can't, and be able to kind of know the difference between those things. I get the sense that Vonnegut feels that we've gone too far over to the, doesn't really matter, I'm not going to worry about it, when Vietnam is taking place, and I don't remember what the numbers are, but if it's not the same, it's pretty close. The tonnage of ammunition, of bombs that were dropped in Vietnam in a short amount of time is essentially the same amount that's dropped all throughout Europe in World War II, but it's in a much more condensed area. But not worried about it as much. So it goes. It's not really impacting me as much as maybe I thought the World War II, kind of things were. So Vonnegut certainly is becoming upset in the way that we just generally kind of have an apathy of things. Does it matter? And this isn't going Zach, therefore you are wrong. This isn't the kind of take of it. But I do think the whole can it change versus do we want to change would be your point. And I think the movie in reverse kind of becomes a way of him maybe trying to communicate that.
I was gonna say that from like a human perspective, I think that's a good way to look at the past because what happened. But the thing is that right now is the past for another moment, and so you can't kind of let that happen. like you can't have that attitude with the future, but you can with the past. But from a Tralfamadorian standpoint, it's all the same, and so we're just doing it over and over again.
Okay. So, like, can we change things in the past? No, we cannot. Can we improve things for the present or for the future?
Yeah.
Yes, those would be things that we could. But you're right. That's assuming that we're taking a look at things from a linear standpoint, a 3D view, that this is the way that they work. If we're looking at it in that Tralfamadorian viewpoint, that, okay, you can see all things at all time. No, because the universe is going to end when we hit that button. It's always ended. It always will end. That's simply what it's going to be. Don't hit that button, Heath. The world's going to come to an end right now. Oh, Heath, you went and did it.
And you always will.
Not to sound like a stupid question, though. What are Tralfamadorians? Since they are aliens, they are therefore. How many countries do we
Not
have?
of this land.
Come on, like, I didn't know this.
They're not humans.
Bird alien.
Who's the author of the book? Or what is the author of the book, according to the author himself? A pillar of salt. Because what's the human thing to do? To look back. And so, like, even if you're a Tralfamadorian, you don't really necessarily purposely look back because you just see everything and pick what you want. So, with this whole idea of kind of like wanting to change, that alien viewpoint is the so it goes. The human point should be more of, okay, what are some things that we can do? Can we change? Do we want to change things? I mentioned to you the movie in reverse part. What kind of happens with the movie that he's looking at here with 1974 on page 74? I think it's a neat little scene.
He's reacting.
So instead of Germans imprisoning people, Germans will be
Setting
letting
them
them free.
And they walk back.
Planes are going backwards. It is, he says, like sucking up the bombs, and the ammunition is going into it as they're flying backwards, and then they're landing at airports, and then they're becoming disassembled in factories. It makes the point by women, motherly figures are the ones taking all this stuff apart, and then all the people end up getting younger and younger and younger until they turn into babies. And then Billy extrapolates it. Everyone must go back to being not just babies, but all people go back to. It's two specific people.
Adam and Eve.
It's Adam and Eve. And he goes, and even which historical figure must turn into a baby? And it goes back to Adam and Eve. It must even be Hitler. With the movie in reverse, I think one thing that it does kind of set up with that whole idea, do you want to change, that there is the possibility of change or disarming, weaponry. Is this something that is realistic that is going to happen? Probably not. But the potential, the capability is there for it to happen, and everyone ends up kind of going back to this Adam and Eve. Regardless of, cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, and things like that, just about all major religions have some kind of creation story. All major religions have like at least some kind of starting point. When we think of Adam and Eve, what concepts come to mind? Eden, which
I think
is
it's
The apple.
Steinbeck.
yeah, they apple.
Eden and Eaton.
Eat it and eat
When they left Eden, they go
Who goes east?
Oh, wait. Oh,
Do you know who goes east? And with Apple, Sin, Emma, what were
they
you-
have free will.
do they?
Yeah.
I don't say that's a challenge, but like,
No, yeah, because that's why they eat the apple.
okay. So, free will, you could argue, kind of led to sin. And what's probably worse within Eden than eating the apple of sin that takes place? Because they're not like completely kicked out of Eden right away.
Lying about, or well, shifting the blame, I guess.
Okay. And so their eyes are open to what they did, but then they still have children. And then what some would argue the ultimate sin that takes place is you have Cain and Abel. Cain kills his brother Abel. Cain is jealous of Abel. Both of them present offerings to God. God prefers Abel's offering. Cain becomes jealous. Cain strikes him down. God goes, "What did you do? Where's your brother? How should I know? Am I my brother's keeper? Well, his blood is streaming from the ground. What happened? You know, you are banished." He is then kicked out east of Eden. So he must travel east, Cain, and he has the mark on him. So anyone who strikes against Cain will be punished sevenfold, 7 times worse than what happened to Cain. So getting kicked out of Eden and going east is going to the not paradise places. I think Nod is where Cain ends up going. But you have this whole sin that kind of takes place, which then brings up the whole potential of murder. One of the philosophical and theological debates that kind of takes place is what is humans. What is our role when it comes to sin? Some people kind of take a look that sin is natural. With different versions of biblical text and Hebrew text and whatnot, there's a lot of discussion as to, well, how do things truly get interpreted? Some people believe that it says humans will overcome sin. Some people argues that it's a commandment that you must overcome sin. One of the things that Steinbeck takes a look at in East of Eden is the idea that thou mayest overcome sin, so that you have the ability to choose whether or not you are going to allow sin to rule you, or you are going to rule over sin. The movie going in reverse, if the planes are being disassembled, if everything is taken apart, if everything is going back to the beautiful starting point of Adam and Eve, the argument would then be that, all right, Chandler decides what his path is going to be, Jesse decides what his path is going to be, Zach decides what his path is going to be. It might not be easy to choose the correct path. It might not be convenient to choose a better path, but you have the option of choosing a path. But too many times people just go, so it goes. Which again is the non-human, the alien, the outside, the foreign perspective, as opposed to what we as humans should be able to do. So obviously Buddha is going to show up again in the book on page 215, as we all know. But maybe take a look at the context of what's happening at that point in the book, so far as the location. I mean, we pretty much know it's going to be Dresden related. But does the poignancy of the setting of the environment for when that word shows up again, does it kind of impact anything that maybe we can kind of better understand what's going on? But certainly Vonnegut, I think, is having a big-time philosophical dilemma question here when it comes to free will. Mentioned to you that, when it comes to do you think humans have free will or not, I don't want to say the two only aspects that maybe impact our belief on it are religion and science, but I think two of the biggest things that impact our beliefs on do you have free will would probably be religion and science. Some folks are going to go, yeah, I do have free will in the sense that there are I have a starting point, I have an ending point. Everything I do in between is kind of up to me. Others will argue, no, it's already been determined. You didn't really decide. It's just known that he thinks he's going to be making these decisions, but someone else has already kind of determined it for you. Others would argue that you have the ability to act, but it's already known how you are going to act. So you're given the gift of deciding what you want to do, but it's not a surprise to higher power that you make these decisions. It's already kind of want to say mapped out, but it's already known, aware, cognizant of this is what Megan's going to do on April the 2nd, 2019, when she decks Jesse with a vicious left cross. Look, you already knocked your glasses off. Does it matter that they have free will? I think that was a good question to kind of throw out. You know, that doesn't really matter. Does it?
We're all gonna die someday.
Do you like? If you go with no, you don't have any free will. If you go with no, so you don't have free will.
Yeah.
What's the point?
So do what you're supposed to do. Well, to figure out what you're supposed to do. But then you have the choice of if you want to figure it out or not.
I mean, I think it's impossible to really comprehend
Yeah.
free will because it's impossible not to really make the decision to no one is like acting on your level and like choose to do what you do. You just don't know whether it's a choice or not. You have free will to a point. I just think that like you give it up due to society. Like, I think it's John Locke that had that idea of giving up free will in favor for civilization.
And like John Stuart Mill has things where, and he would be, John Stuart Mill's a utilitarian, so the whole idea of, you know, what's good for the whole, or at least the majority. So you sacrifice things for the benefit of society. That's why laws are there and things like that. You can do whatever causes happiness to you is his main thing, so long as it doesn't hurt other people. So Megan, it's going to make me happy to punch Jesse, but that would be going against John Stuart Mill because now you're causing pain to someone else. So there's certainly kind of limits to it. If I think to say that we have zero free will does kind of become somewhat apathetic in the idea of just going through the motions. That's the way things are. What's meant to be, meant to be. You know, say la vie, that's life, all that kind of stuff. And we certainly have a lot of sayings, regardless of culture, that kind of match up with the idea that there is some kind of greater power kind of outlining everything for us. But certainly, and Vonnegut again is an atheist, so this certainly would kind of impact his viewpoint. If we don't have free will, what's the point of going on through anything? If we don't have free will, why even get involved within massacres? Because it's not like you're actually going to be able to determine who's going to benefit and who's going to suffer from those ultimate things. One thing that is interesting, and why comes up quite a bit, Billy asks why. Billy asks the Tralfamadorians why. You remember there's also a part where a German soldier hits an American POW, and the American POW goes, why? And the German soldier goes, by you, by anybody. You have this kind of little parallel setup of captor, captive, why being asked in both times. Why would not be a scientific question. In scientific inquiry, you're supposed to stay away from why questions because you have to find things that have answers. And why ultimately leads to another why question, which leads to another why question until someone decides to go because or why not. But you know, if you spend time with a 3 or 4-year-old, you'll get a series of questions that just keep going, why? That's not the kind of question that Vonnegut would want to look for within a scientific realm. He would want to try to find answers to it and reasons to it. Why write a book in the structure that you do? Why present the tales like this?
Why not?
Choice he always has and always will do that.
Why not?
Go free will. Organize.
Oh yeah. I found that really interesting.
Wait, those are the ones where there's like these little symbols or whatever, right? And then you said they see them all at one time. It's like a,
So Billy says that they look like little telegrams. So you have, you know, these little stories, these little vignettes that are entirely unrelated to one another. But when you take a look at all of them together, as my arrow, there we're going. When you look at the sum of the parts as opposed to them individually, now what do you see? A big picture, something that is abstract, something that is supposed to be beautiful. Keep in mind the way that his book is set up. You have all of these somewhat abstract little stories, all these kind of abstract vignettes that are there, that it doesn't seem that there would be a whole lot of connection between Billy being in Dresden, Billy looking at someone in his office, Billy getting thrown into the deep end of the pool by his father, and hey, it's going to be sink or swim. Billy going at the Lions Club and being president and things like that. But when you take a look at all of those little stories together, it's meant to have a message that's supposed to be a little bit deeper, a little bit more poignant, a little bit more impactful upon the reader. So in a lot of ways, and Vonnegut is sure to present his ideas this way to tell us, because keep in mind, on that title page, which I think we read right as we were introducing the book, survived to tell the tale. This is a novel somewhat in the telegraphic schizophrenic manner of tales of the plain of Tralfamadore where the flying saucers come from. The book is set up to kind of be mimic along that Tralfamadorian viewpoint. If you're a person who goes, well, this doesn't make any sense, you're probably right. If this doesn't make any sense, then what else doesn't make sense? Not everything. If a Tralfamadorian book told from their perspective does not make sense, then that means if their stories don't make sense, the Tralfamadorian viewpoint does not make sense. If the Tralfamadorian viewpoint does not make sense, then what phrase does not make sense? So it goes. Does that make sense? Doesn't make sense? Plus, follow it up with, can you make sense of war? No. So why present it in a traditional format where there is, the setting, the plot, you have the rising action with the conflict, you have the climactic event and the resolution. A traditional story, you can't make sense of war, so why even try to pretend that you can present it in such a fashion? Emma, where are you going to be tomorrow? That's fun. And then Healthy Games. And then is the next Friday you want to do?
Next Friday and next Monday.
Okay.
You said you'd just email my ads.